Final Fantasy VII, a game with a legacy of spin-offs, movies, and a generation of kids trying to give themselves embarrassing spiky hairstyles. With the Final Fantasy VII Remake out, we figured we'd pay our own tribute by giving you some of the history behind Final Fantasy VII's characters and world. So, if you're new to the series, or just need a refresher before diving into the remake, here's the leaderboard's guide to Final Fantasy VII. Cloud Strife. Amnesiac mercenary, proclaimed ex-soldier, fledgling terrorist. Cloud Strife is the classic kind of spiky-haired ball of angst you'll find in any Final Fantasy. Cloud grew up as a loner in the sleepy mountain town of Nibelheim. He heard tales of the hero Sephiroth and his elite group of warriors known as soldiers. So, Cloud decides to enlist in the private military of the energy conglomerate Shinra in hopes of joining Soldier himself. He wanted to be like Sephiroth. And, wanting to impress the girl next door, Tifa Lockhart, Cloud set off to the Shinra capital of Midgar to fulfill his dreams and become the badass that we know and love today. Except, he didn't. Cloud didn't qualify for the soldier program, so he got placed into Shinra's ranks as a lowly grunt. Embarrassed and depressed by his failure, Cloud cut off all contact with his folks back home. During his career as a Shinra militant, Cloud found a kindred spirit and role model in a soldier named Zack Fair. The two became fast friends, but everything would change when they set off on a seemingly routine mission back to Cloud's hometown of Nibelheim. Nibelheim, small mountain community, hometown of Tifa and Cloud. Nibelheim is a sleepy little town at the base of Mount Nibel, home to one of Shinra's Mako reactor energy plants. When Cloud, Sephiroth, and Zack arrived to investigate a malfunction at the reactor, an embarrassed Cloud kept his helmet on the whole time to avoid having to talk to any of his old neighbors. To make things more awkward, Tifa was working as a mountain guide at the time, so she was hired to lead the team to the reactor. At least she didn't recognize Cloud. The mission took a strange turn when the team discovered the cause of the malfunction, an infestation of mutated monsters. You see, Nibelheim isn't just a popular tourist destination, it's also home to a secret Shinra laboratory hidden in the basement of a nearby manor. Perplexed by the mutants in the reactor, Sephiroth investigated the Shinra manor, where he discovered a secret that drove him insane. From there, Sephiroth went on a rampage, razing the village to the ground, killing many of its inhabitants and kidnapping Tifa. Cloud chased Sephiroth up the mountain to the reactor, where he found Tifa and Zack injured by Sephiroth. Cloud fought Sephiroth, but he stood no chance, and Sephiroth promptly stabbed him with his 9-foot-long sword. No surprise there. However, with his last ounce of strength, Cloud hoisted Sephiroth up by the blade of his sword and hurled him into the reactor before passing out. Shinra operatives found the unconscious Zack and Cloud near the reactor and moved them to the laboratory in Shinra Manor. There, they performed inhumane experiments on the two of them using Mako energy. Since he was a soldier, Zack was able to withstand the experiments, but the overexposure to Mako left Cloud physically and psychologically fractured. After years in the lab, Zack was able to break him and his catatonic buddy out and make their way towards Midgar. They planned to work as mercenaries once Cloud had fully recovered, but a team of Shinra operatives attacked them once they reached the outskirts of Midgar. With his dying breaths, Zack bequeathed his Buster Sword to Cloud and told him to work in Midgar without him. Midgar, Shinra capital, home of Avalanche and Aerith. As a sprawling industrial metropolis, Midgar is the base of operations for the Shinra Empire. The whole city is powered by 6 huge Mako reactors, and it's structured made of a series of tiered plates stacked on top of each other. It's like a dystopian wedding cake. The wealthy live in the comfort of the upper level, where Shinra headquarters is located. Everyone else is left to fend for themselves in the slums below. The lower levels are mostly run by criminal organizations and gangsters, like Don Corneo. He keeps Shinra from interfering in his business by keeping them informed of any ongoing terrorist activities in the lower sectors. Once Cloud got to Midgar, he stumbled around the city for a while, living on the streets while mumbling incoherently to himself. Luckily, Tifa was also living in Midgar. When she found Cloud, she invited him to work with her in the anti-Shinra resistance group, Avalanche. Tifa Lockhart, master of hand-to-hand combat, second in command of Avalanche, Cloud's childhood neighbor. Last time he saw Tifa, Sephiroth left her heavily injured. Her martial arts instructor, Zangan, found her and took her to Midgar to get medical attention. After recovering, Tifa remained in Midgar and joined up with Barrett Wallace, the leader of Avalanche. When she finds Cloud, a wave of memories comes rushing back to him about their childhood friendship. But that never happened. Tifa and Cloud were never that close growing up, so she started worrying about Cloud's mental state. As a way of keeping an eye on him, she did what any concerned friend would do. Hired him as a mercenary for her terrorist group. Duh! As a member of Avalanche, Tifa bears many responsibilities for the group. She runs the bar, Seventh Heaven, as the team's headquarters. But Tifa also puts her expert hand-to-hand combat skills to work on missions. After Cloud's first job with Avalanche is a success, she manages to convince him to stay with the group for a second mission. Cloud agrees to help fight for her cause, despite his disagreements with Avalanche's fiery leader, Barrett. Barrett Wallace, leader of Avalanche, has a gun arm. Barrett was once a simple married man living in the small mining town of Corel. When his wife, Myrna, fell ill, he convinced the people of Corel to allow Shinra to build a Mako reactor near the community. He hoped that the corporate partnership could provide the resources needed to treat his wife. Barrett's friend Dine opposed the idea at first, but he backed down out of respect for Barrett's reasoning. Not long after the Corel reactor was built, Avalanche hijacked the facility. No, not Barrett's Avalanche, but an earlier, more violent incarnation of the group. Barrett and Dine fought to help Shinra retake the reactor, but Shinra figured the people of Corel were responsible for the incident, so they blew up the Mako plant and attacked the village in retaliation. Barrett and Dine hurried back to save their town, but Shinra forces ambushed them, leaving the two in a literal cliffhanger. Barrett saved Dine from falling by grabbing his hand, but Scarlet, a Shinra executive, shot both men's hands clean off, sending Dine tumbling into the abyss. Despite the odds, Barrett managed to escape with Dine's daughter, Marlene, adopting her as his own. He set out for Midgar, replaced his lost hand with a sweet machine gun, and formed his own version of Avalanche to fight against Shinra. Sure, he wants to protect the planet from Shinra's environmentally harmful Mako harvesting, but he is also out to avenge his home, his wife, and his best friend, and his arm. Avalanche, underground eco-terrorist group, led by Barrett Wallace. Barrett's cell of Avalanche is relatively separate from the more militaristic official faction of Avalanche, referred to as Avalanche HQ. While Barrett's team disapproves of Avalanche HQ's more violent methods, HQ isn't a fan of Barrett's chaotic approach. Nonetheless, the two Avalanche groups in Midgar tend to stay out of each other's business. Biggs, Wedge, and Jessie Raspberry joined Barrett's group eager to fight against Shinra. Jessie grew up in Sector 7's residential district. She dreamed of performing at the Gold Saucer. She just landed the starring role when her father got sick with Mako poisoning from the Shinra plant where he worked. Jessie blamed Shinra for what happened and, unbeknownst to her family, joined up with Avalanche to get revenge. A skilled tinkerer, Jessie is responsible for crafting the bombs Avalanche uses in their attacks. She also has a bit of a crush on Cloud and flirts with him non-stop despite getting rejected. Apparently, Avalanche doesn't have a workplace harassment seminar. Biggs grew up as an orphan in the Sector 5 slums. He became a teacher at his local orphanage where he served as a role model to many of the children. He eventually left the orphanage to fight for Avalanche, where he distinguishes himself both as a fighter and a tactician. He still holds the children of his orphanage close to his heart and fights to give them a better future. Wedge's passion for saving the planet is matched only by his love of food and his cats. An orphan, like Biggs, Wedge sees himself as the weak link in the group. He often has doubts about his true potential as a revolutionary, maybe because he's constantly getting injured on missions. Even so, he probably doesn't realize how much he truly contributes to Avalanche's fight against Shinra. The Shinra Electrical Power Company, ruthless megacorporation, led by President Shinra and his son Rufus, creators of the Genova Project. Like any major conglomerate, the Shinra Corporation is after money and power. Shinra rules much of the known world thanks to their main source of income, Mako Energy. Mako Energy is refined by drilling into the planet's core and harvesting the planet's life stream, the magical essence responsible for all of the life in the world. As you could imagine, this has some damaging effects on the environment. But hey, if it doesn't affect the bottom line, Shinra doesn't really care. So, Shinra makes serious bank off of destroying the planet. But they've also got a monopoly on pretty much every other unscrupulous industry you can think of. They've even got their own private military at their beck and call, so Shinra is virtually unstoppable. With their weapons and science divisions, they can invest in cartoonishly evil ideas, like the Genova Project. We'll get to that later. Avalanche is the greatest thorn in Shinra's side, and their guerrilla tactics always keep them one step ahead of the megacorporation. Still, Shinra will stop at nothing to crush any form of resistance. Aerith Gainsborough, local flower seller, last of the Cetra. Aerith is a plucky young girl who sells flowers in the lower levels of Midgar. Cloud first encounters Aerith after sabotaging the Sector 1 Mako reactor, but they make proper introductions after Cloud takes a tumble into the Sector 5 slums. Aerith discovers him just in time. She's being hunted by the Turks, Shinra's elite investigative team. She strikes a deal with Cloud for him to act as her bodyguard. In exchange, for a date with her. Though the perpetually awkward Cloud tries to ditch her after they get to safety, she continues to stick to him like glue. Despite her cheery demeanor, Aerith has a heartbreaking past. Her mother was the last of an ancient race of magic users called the Cetra, and her father was a former Shinra scientist who helped her escape from Shinra's head researcher, Dr. Hojo. The two went into hiding and soon gave birth to Aerith, but after the Turks found them, Dr. Hojo killed Aerith's father and started experimenting on Aerith and her mother. 7 years later, Aerith's mother managed to escape Shinra's headquarters with Aerith, but was mortally wounded in the process. With her dying breath, Aerith's mother asked a woman named Elmira Gainsborough to watch over Aerith, so Elmira raised Aerith as her own and hid her from the Turks. As Aerith grew, she began to deny her heritage, but deep down, she knew the truth about herself and the Cetra. In the remake, Aerith is haunted by swarms of mysterious specters. At first, she's the only one who's able to see the ghosts, but when she touches Cloud for the first time, he's able to see them as well. The Whispers harass both heroes throughout the story. Sometimes they appear to attack Aerith and Cloud, while other times they seem to be helping them. Mostly, they seem concerned with keeping Aerith and Cloud on the right track. No one knows the true connection between Aerith and these spirits. Are they related to her connection to the Lifestream, or her Cetra blood? Only time will tell. The Cetra, ancient race of mystic nomads, the caretakers of the planet. The Cetra were an ancient race that inhabited Earth thousands of years ago. They had the unique ability to communicate with the planet, thanks to their ancient wisdom about the Lifestream. The Cetra believed that if they wandered the planet, nurturing and cultivating it, their journey would one day lead them to the Promised Land, a mythical land of near infinite Mako energy. Some of the Cetra strayed from their nomadic ways and settled down, starting their own civilizations. The descendants of these Cetra would become the humans of present day. And then, something really interesting happened. An alien showed up and killed them all. Well, almost all of them. The survivors banded together to use their magic to seal the alien away, trapping it in the crater where it originally landed. 2,000 years later, Shinra would take a deep interest in the Cetra. Well, they were more interested in the vast energy of the Promised Land. Okie dokie. So, the remake only covers the stuff that happens in Midgar. In other words, we're starting to get into uncharted territory. Sure, we've met Red 13 in the remake, but we haven't really gotten the chance to know him yet. So, from here on in, we're gonna go by info from the original Final Fantasy VII. Red 13, real name, Nanaki, guardian of Cosmo Canyon. When Cloud and the gang attack Shinra's HQ to rescue Aerith, they find her locked in a cage with a fearsome lion-like creature. Bad news, right? Wrong. He's actually a chill guy named Nanaki. He's a member of a rare, unnamed species of essentially talking cats. His family had long served as the protectors of Cosmo Canyon, a natural wonder inhabited by a tribe led by the wise elder Bugenhagen. When Nanaki was just a cub, his father disappeared. A rival tribe called the Gi was about to invade, so Red 13 figured his dad bailed to save himself. Soon after, his mother passed away, so Bugenhagen raised Nanaki himself as his grandfather. Even though Nanaki's 48, he's basically a teenager in his species' lifespan. Nanaki set out for a ritual his species performs every 50 years to appease the planet. But before he could return home, the Turks kidnapped him and sent him off to Dr. Hojo's for his twisted experiments. Dubbed Red 13 by the Shinra researchers, Nanaki is branded, scarred, and genetically modified by Dr. Hojo, but his willpower remains intact. After Cloud frees him, he helps the group escape from Midgar and leads them to his ancestral home, Cosmo Canyon. Cosmo Canyon, home of Red 13 and Bugenhagen, natural pilgrimage site. Cosmo Canyon is a spiritual and natural mecca for many travelers. The community's wisest elder, Bugenhagen, is a devout scholar of both nature and technology and shares his trove of wisdom with Cloud and his team when they visit his observatory. Cosmo Canyon is also where the first version of Avalanche was founded several years earlier. The people of Cosmo Canyon were historically at odds with the warmongering Gi tribe, who tried to invade the town through the nearby caves. While Red 13 believed his father had fled the impending invasion, Bugenhagen unlocks the caves for Red 13 to show him the truth. His father had actually sacrificed himself in order to defeat the Gi, saving his son and the rest of Cosmo Canyon. Nanaki finally forgives his father, and the party continues their adventure. Gold Saucer, massive amusement park, built on the ruins of Old Corel. With all the emotional and tragic backstories unfolding, the gang needs some R&R. So they stop at the Gold Saucer, a sprawling, gilded metropolis of fun and excitement. The Gold Saucer is divided into 7 squares: Round Speed, Event, Ghost, Chocobo, Battle, and Wonder. Each square has its own share of games and attractions to take part in. During their stay, Cloud even has the option to go on a date and see the sights with one of the female members of the party, or Barrett, if you're lucky. But the Gold Saucer isn't all fun and games. The entire park is built on top of, you guessed it, another emotional and tragic backstory. We love Final Fantasy. We love it. Apparently, someone thought it would be a cute idea to build an amusement park right above Coral, Barrett's old hometown. Turns out, Barrett's old pal Dyne is still alive, has a gun hand just like his, and has been going on murderous rampages throughout the Gold Saucer. Pretty horrible, but not as horrible as the other guy the gang meets here. Kate Shi, surreptitious fortune teller, secret Shinra agent. We just get a glimpse of Kate Shi in the remake, but we can learn more about his lore from the original. Kate Shi is, he's sort of like a cat, and he's got a megaphone and like a little crown and a cape, and he's riding the giant marshmallow demon thing. Anyway, Cloud runs into him in Wonder Square in the Gold Saucer, and he just offers to tell Cloud's fortune. Cloud's like, okay, fine. So after Kate Shee is done, he's like, hey, I'm gonna stick around with this crew from now on, actually. And instead of telling him to get lost, Cloud's just like, sure, whatever. Big mistake, because it turns out that Kate Shee is actually a drone that Shinra deployed to spy on Cloud and his friends. Okay, if Shinra was gonna make a robot designed to spy on people, why would they make it so annoying? Why would they make it so bad at combat? Why would they make it look like this? Well, Kate Shee is actually piloted by Reeve Tutsi, Shinra's head of urban development. Anyway, Kate Shee betrays Cloud and the team, kidnapping Marlene and delivering the invaluable Keystone to the Turks. But he's inspired by the gang's devotion to saving the planet and quickly has a change of heart. He ends up sacrificing himself to obtain the black materia for the rest of the party. It's an emotionally devastating loss. Or it would be, if he wasn't just a robot, because a replacement Kate Shee shows up immediately afterwards to rejoin the party. Oh, and in battle, Kate Shee has a move that can either kill every enemy in one hit or kill everyone in your party in one hit. You will never use him. Yuffie Kisaragi, self-styled materia thief, member of the Wutai clan. We're still waiting on Yuffie to make an appearance in the remake, but in the original, Cloud and company can be attacked by a mysterious ninja girl. After she gets the crud beaten out of her, she introduces herself as Yuffie and demands to join the team. She acts selfish, but she always sticks by the party's side, until they drop her by her hometown of Wutai Village. Once they get to Wutai, Yuffie steals the party's stash of materia and runs away. When the gang catches up to Yuffie, she's being held hostage by Midgar's friendly neighborhood crime boss, Don Corneo. After her friends beat the tar out of Corneo, Yuffie apologizes, returns the stolen materia, and rejoins the team. Yeah, Yuffie is a materia-obsessed kleptomaniac, but she just wants to impress her father, the leader of the Wutai clan. Yuffie's cocky and doesn't respect the Wutai traditions, so she and her dad are constantly at odds with each other. But ever since the Wutai War, Yuffie's had an innate need to make him proud. The Wutai War. Roughly around the time Yuffie was born, a violent conflict arose between the Wutai clan and Shinra. Shinra wanted to build a Mako reactor in Wutai Village, which didn't exactly sit well with the tradition-oriented ninja clan. This sparked an all-out war. Despite Shinra's numbers, technology, and resources, the Wutai warriors put up a major fight thanks to their ninja training. Nonetheless, Shinra's soldier program tipped the scales in Shinra's favor. Their golden boy Sephiroth distinguished himself as a war hero, winning numerous key battles in the conflict, and the war ultimately ended when Zack Fair single-handedly captured Wutai Village. With the Wutai defeated, Yuffie's father was forced to concede to Shinra's demands. He banned the use of materia and allowing Wutai Village to be transformed from a sacred place of culture to a tourist trap. Yuffie was burnt by her father's surrender. So she ran away from Wutai, vowing to find materia that she believed could save her village from Shinra's control. Yuffie's pretty helpful, but Cid Highwind is an invaluable member of Cloud's party. Cid Highwind, disgraced mechanical engineer, knows how to use a spear for some reason. We don't get much new background on Cid in the remake, but we know that Cid's a mechanic and scientist by trade, and always dreamed of sending a rocket to outer space. With the help of Shinra's space program, it seemed like he was finally going to fulfill this dream. Unfortunately, he was forced to abort the launch at the last second to save his assistant, Shira. As a result of the launch's failure, Shinra abandoned the space program, leaving Cid's rocket sitting in the middle of a town as a landmark and the namesake of Rocket Town. Shira blamed herself. And hey, so did Cid. Shira spent the following years trying to make it up to him, while the disgruntled Cid just treated her like garbage. Cid gets a glimmer of hope when Shinra's new president, Rufus, comes to visit Rocket Town. But Rufus doesn't want to renew the space program. He only wants to take Cid's biplane, the Tiny Bronco. When Cloud and his friends show up in Rocket Town, they catch Palmer, the director of the Shinra space program, attempting to steal the Tiny Bronco. Cid helps them battle Palmer, who runs away and gets hit by a truck. Cid and the gang then escape from Shinra, with Cid grabbing onto the plane as it flies away, begrudgingly becoming a member of the party. Cid's a foul-mouthed, cynical old bastard. He doesn't have much interest in the team's quest to save the world. Still, he's not going to let Shinra relaunch his rocket. Besides, the gang needs to take the huge materia that powers the rocket in order to stop Sephiroth. Ironically, Cid tries to stop his own rocket from launching, but Shinra locks them in the rocket before blasting it off into space. Once Cid sees the planet from space, he realizes he's finally achieved his dream, and that the world needs him to stop Sephiroth. So, with Shira's help, he and the rest of the gang finally make it back to Earth, and Cid continues the quest with a newfound sense of purpose. He also flies the airship later. It's pretty sick. Vincent Valentine, former Turk, shape-shifting werewolf guy. We haven't seen him yet in the remake, but Vincent has one of the most important backstories. Once upon a time, Vincent was a Turk working with Shinra. He had a crush on a Shinra scientist named Lucrezia, but she ended up marrying Shinra's head researcher, Professor Hojo, and became pregnant with Hojo's child. Hojo intended to use his unborn son as a test subject for his greatest project yet, so he started experimenting on a pregnant Lucrezia. Vincent noticed her health start to deteriorate, so he confronted Hojo to tell him to put a stop to this madness. Well, Hojo shot Vincent in the chest and started performing horrible experiments on him, because why not? As time passed, Vincent showed no signs of not being dead anymore. So, in a last-ditch effort to save him, Lucrezia infused him with the demonic, chaos-infused Mako, as well as its balancing counterpart, the Protomateria. Vincent awoke, alone, in Hojo's abandoned laboratory in the basement of Shinra Manor. He now had superhuman strength and agility, as well as the ability to turn into a wolf-like chaos form, thanks to Lucrezia's procedure. Vincent figured that Lucrezia was dead, and he blamed himself for it. Apparently, there was a big Dracula coffin lying around in this top-secret laboratory. So, as a punishment, Vincent locked himself inside it. He slept in there for over 20 years, reliving the tragedies he suffered at the hands of Hojo in his nightmares. When Cloud and his friends awaken this angsty vampire werewolf man, Vincent decides to team up with them to fight Shinra, and later star in his own spin-off game. But whatever happened to Lucrezia's baby? The Jenova Project and Sephiroth. So, remember that big alien that nearly wiped out the Cetra? Well, Shinra found it frozen in a crater and mistook it for a Cetra. I mean, it's a super easy mistake, I guess. Hojo and his team dubbed the specimen Jenova and immediately got to work trying to figure out how they could use it. At first, they tried to use Jenova to find more Mako to drill, but once that didn't work out, the Jenova Project became all about creating some super soldiers by injecting an unborn child with cells from Jenova's body. And the very first test subject turned out to be, you guessed it, Hojo and Lucrezia's baby, who turned out to be, you guessed it again, Sephiroth. Sephiroth was taken from his parents and raised to become a soldier. And hey, he was so good at killing things that he got famous for it. All Sephiroth knew about his origins was that his mother was named Jenova, which is true, in a sort of messed up way. In reality, Jenova wasn't as much his mom as it was a part of him, if not him entirely. Well, when he discovered the Shinra Manor in Nibelheim, he found all of Dr. Hojo's notes about the Jenova Project and how he was born. If Sephiroth had any marbles at that point, he lost them then. He became unhinged and obsessed with destroying the world, accomplishing what Jenova had tried to do thousands of years before. Cloud and Sephiroth's fates are connected, but it's by more than just some bad blood. When Hojo abducted Cloud after the Nibelheim incident, he injected him with Jenova cells. As Hojo theorized, when Jenova cells are separated, they are compelled to reunite. So Cloud is inexplicably drawn to Sephiroth throughout his journey. Sephiroth is the central convergence of Jenova itself, so he's even able to control Cloud's mind at certain points. If Cloud can ever hope to defeat Sephiroth, he'll need to sever the ties that allow his nemesis to control him. Of course, lots of this may be different when the next part of the remake comes out. You know, in like 10 or 15 years. How do you feel about the Final Fantasy VII Remake? Does it stack up to the original so far? Let us know in the comments. And be sure to subscribe to the leaderboard. From indie to AAA, we love the games you play. I'm Sydney. Thank you for watching.